The following podcast is sponsored by Structure Tech.
Why should you get a new roof just because you have an old roof that's about ready to go out and then hail comes and you get a brand new roof? Is that what happens or no?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, if in fact you have a roof that is damaged because of hail and the roofer, whoever your contractor is, and the adjuster come to an agreement what the damage was and what needs to be replaced, then that's what happens. You get a new roof.
Welcome everybody. You're listening to Structure Talk, a Structure Tech presentation. My name is Bill Ulrich alongside Tessa Murray and Ruben Saltzman. As always, the three-legged stool here at Structure Talk. And on today's episode, we are talking insurance, home insurance specifically, with Tim Mulgren, correct?
That's correct.
Tim, welcome to the program. Can you just take a quick second and introduce yourself? Who do you work with? What do you do? How long have you been around? And give us your credentials.
Thanks for having me, Bill. Again, my name is Tim Mulgren. I am a branch owner of an agency called the Woodlands Insurance. The Woodlands Insurance has been around since 2010. I've been in insurance since 1999, I guess. So quite some time, but our particular branch has been around since 2010. We're independent, which just means that we have a number of different carriers that we work with instead of being captive like a Farmers or a State Farm. It's been around for a while, and it's an interesting topic that Ruben and I had talked a little bit about at the end of last week.
So Tim, you've been in the business since 99. What brought you to the insurance business?
Nobody really stands up in their third grade class and says, I want to be an insurance agent when they grow up. It's always something that people kind of fall into. In my particular case, my mom actually worked for what they call a third-party administrator. So she did claims for different medical carriers. After I was talking to Tessa a little bit ago, I was on the radio in Wisconsin for a little while. And after that, I decided to head back to Minnesota. Really wasn't sure what I wanted to do. So I started doing customer service for her employer. They also did some COBRA benefits, which is, that insurance that you get if in fact you had to leave work for health insurance and such. I moved to Florida in 96 and really didn't have much to do and found a job in insurance and kind of been there ever since.
Awesome. So do you work often with home and hail claims and weather damage and that kind of stuff? Is that something that's always in the forefront of an insurance agent's mind?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say that's in our forefront, but it's definitely the white elephant in the corner. The tough part for agents and people that work in an agency is a lot of times you become the go-between between the carrier and the insured. And
Sure.
So especially when you have these types of situations where you have hail damage or any type of a claim, and the insurance carrier may not see the same thing that other people may come out to your door, knock on your door and go up on your roof and say, I see this. And so it becomes a little bit of a difficult conversation to have because inevitably the insured is going to want a new roof because they were just told that they had a bunch of hail damage and maybe the insurance carrier doesn't see it that way. And so now you become that go-between. And the tough part for us is, if in fact there's no coverage for that or there's not enough damage or they don't see any damage, then that insured kind of feels like they're with the wrong insurance carrier. And it can be a situation where you're losing clients when really nothing went wrong.
Tim, how does that happen? And I mean, this happened in my neighborhood where I moved into a neighborhood. Every home on the street had architectural shingles. They had all had their roofs replaced. The house I bought was the one house on the street with the asphalt 3-tab shingles. They never got their roof replaced. Every house got a new roof. I like to say they won a new roof, except for the people that I bought the house from. How in the world does that happen?
Well, a couple things could occur. Number one, they could be with a carrier that doesn't assess the damage. All the different carriers assess damage differently, right? There are some that you just know they're just going to go ahead and buy the roof and then it is what it is. And then there's others, some carriers, I won't name names, but you have to have in a 10-foot square area, like 34 different pockmarks, right? And a lot of times that just doesn't happen. And so, in that particular case, that carrier is not going to buy that roof. Or the homeowner just just decided that it was too much work to file a claim. And they just said, you know what? They decided to be Reuben and say, you know what? There may be some hail damage here, but the roof is still okay. And there's no reason for me to be filing a claim because of it. So you can say that, okay, well, my neighbors have hail damage, but, why wouldn't I? That's really not going to be the case, but different carriers have different way of assessing their claims.
To jump in on your point there, Tim, I just got to say, this house that I don't live in anymore, it was built in 98. Mm-hmm. And the same original 3-tab shingles are on that roof today. This is 22 years now. And there have been many hailstorms. There have been the same houses have been hit by hail numerous times on that street and had their roofs replaced over and over again. Yet this house right next door, my old house, still has the exact same roof and it still doesn't leak. Mm-hmm. So it just really drives home the point that all this hail, it does not destroy roofs. It removes a little bit of life. That's it. This is what people freak out about.
Reuben feels very strongly about that.
I was wondering if you could clarify his position. Wasn't sure really where you were coming in at.
I think we're just going off the rails with all of this. This is why we call it winning a new roof. I used to joke with my neighbors about how, I'm going to go outside and go do the hail dance because I got to win me a new roof too. This will be wonderful. But we're all paying for it. Tim, do you remember when you used to get free steaks when you got your windshield replaced?
All the time, and obviously that doesn't happen anymore.
Free
Tessa's
steak?
too young for this.
So
Tim, tell her about
You
it.
missed out on a free steak?
Yeah. So there were a few glass companies out there that if in fact you got a new windshield from them, that you would get a free box of steaks. And so that was their way of promoting their windshield company. Just a bunch that had that type of a promotion where you would come out and you would be like, hey, use our windshield company and we get the free box of steaks. What they were finding was, it wasn't a free box of steaks. Unfortunately, that windshield, the price of that windshield went up. The insurance was paying for the price of the now more expensive windshield, which in turn moves that premium back to everybody else. So, and they cut that off from doing that. But
So you're saying there's no free steak. There's no
free
such thing as a free steak either. Okay.
Well, and what I was telling you too, Reuben, back in 2010, on average, when we were doing a home insurance policy for a home that was $250,000, okay? So a normal home insurance policy, we were anywhere between $800 and $1,000 for a premium. Now, 10 years later, you're right around $1,300 to $1,500 for that same policy. So that big of an increase, that's 50% increase over the course of time, and it's all because of two little words, which is replacement cost. And that's what insurance are having issues with.
Can you tell me about that replacement cost? Because when I was in the home inspection world, people all the time joke, I'm like, your roof is, it's probably 15 years on or something. And they're like, well, we're just going to pray for hail. And I said, okay, whatever. But why should you get a new roof just because you have an old roof that's about ready to go out and then hail comes and you get a brand new roof? Is that what happens or no?
Yeah, for the most part. If in fact you have a roof that is damaged because of hail and the roofer, whoever your contractor is, and the adjuster come to an agreement what the damage was and what needs to be replaced, then that's what happens. You get a new roof. And there was a lot of conversation a number of years ago about matching because again, you may have a lot of damage to the south side of your house, but you may have zero damage to the north side, right? And so what was happening a few years back was, insurance started looking at it and saying, well, we're only going to do a replacement of the south side of the roof. Well, the problem with that is that they weren't able to match those shingles to what the north side looked like. And so now all of a sudden you get a situation like, the roof mullet, like you said, where you have two different colors of shingles. And so that was brought up and there was a lot of people that said, okay, well, the insureds hated the fact that, that this was going to be their outcome and almost didn't even want the roof in the first place. And of course, then had issues with their carrier, right? And so now there's a lot of carriers that are instituting a new endorsement called matching, where you actually have to pay more for your insurance, not a ton more, but it's an endorsement to match whatever happens should there be a problem, with the roof with hail damage.
So back to the two words.
Yeah.
Can you say them again?
Replacement cost. So there's two types of ways to insure your belongings, right? You have replacement cost or what they call ACV or actual cash value. Consider something like an auto, like your auto claims are going to be actual cash value. If you have a a 2011, Jeep Cherokee, they're not going to replace that if in fact something happened with a 2020, which is really what we're talking about here,
That is such a good analogy. You said 2011. Let's just say a 2001 Jeep Cherokee.
Yeah.
You total it, and now the insurance company gets you a 2020 Jeep Cherokee. That's what we do with roofs, right?
Yep, that's exactly correct. They're not looking at the depreciation of things. The real issue that we're running into right now because of replacement costs is the actual mortgage lenders. Because the mortgage lenders, they want to make sure that their loan is, we'll call it insured for lack of a better term. They have replacement cost on the house that they're taking the loan out on, because they want to make sure if in fact there's a problem, that homeowner isn't stuck with a $10,000 bill. They don't fix whatever is damaged. Now all of a sudden, if in fact they leave, now the bank is stuck with fixing that $10,000 roof because the insured just decided not to fix it at all. And so what we're running into is right now, a lot of these insurance carriers, because these mortgage lenders are requiring replacement costs, a lot of these insurance carriers are now coming back and saying, well, wait a second, we don't want to be paying for all these roofs all the time, because when do you think these roofing claims came about? When people were trying to sell or purchase their home. Your roof is 15, 20 years old, we need replacement costs, maybe you should go ahead and file a claim. Well, now all of a sudden you're sitting there, with the insurance carrier filing a claim for a house you're about ready to sell because you need to have a new roof in regards to it. So there was a lot of that going on. To combat that, recently, what these insurance carriers are doing is they're putting a limit on how many years you can have replacement costs. A lot of them are going to 15 years. So if in fact your roof is more than 15 years old, they start depreciating it on a sliding scale. Well, that's going to cause trouble with these mortgage lenders when you're going to buy a house. So let's say, for instance, you go to buy a house and your roof is 20 years old in that house you're buying. Well, all of a sudden you go from having from us 15 different carriers that we can use to get you replacement cost on a roof down to about 3. Buying power is a lot less than it was if in fact that roof was 10 years old. And the lender is going to require replacement costs. And if they don't get it, then they're basically not going to give you the loan, or they're going to put some additional impact on it.
So Tim, this is a very interesting point, because I'm just starting to think this through as you're describing it. On all of the disclosure forms that homeowners fill out, there's this question on there that says, is the roof 8 years old or more? And I have no idea where that came from. To me, it seems like a useless, arbitrary number, but you keep saying 15. This seems like a really important number. What
Correct.
if that question was asked on all these forms? Because it seems like that's just become a standard in the insurance industry is 15 years, right?
Yeah, from right now. I mean, that's kind of that break-even point is that 15 years. I'm not sure why they put 8 years. I don't know where that came from either, because when I'm going through the different appraisals and stuff, when we're looking at people, insuring people that are buying a new home, I see that too. Basically, what we do as an insurance carrier is like, okay, if it's 8 years or newer, then hey, ask the realtor when it happened. If in fact factors are more, then what we'll always say is, hey, we really need to know when that roof was put on, because if it was over 15 years old, we may not be able to use some carriers. And there are some carriers right now, which is not, we have a client right now that has a 20-year-old roof. I drove by it, and that roof looks like it's about a 4-year-old roof. I mean, it's beautiful. There's no granules coming down. I mean, it looks like a great roof. And we do have some carriers that don't look at roof age. They go out and do an inspection, and if in fact the roof looks good, then they're good to go. But again, those are few and far between right now, and I bet you dollars to donuts within the next 5 years, those same carriers are going to have a 15-year limit. Which they should. You don't have damage to your roof, or there's no leaking like you were talking about, anything other than cosmetic. You shouldn't be insuring cosmetic things. You should be insuring, the structure itself.
You know what? I was going to say, there was one of the inspectors on our team recently did an inspection on a house with an aging roof. And I think it was one of the comments on the summary page, like it's functional, but it's aging. And the people that were buying the house, their insurance company came out and did their own independent inspection of it, got on the roof and said, we're not going to insure this roof.
Mm-hmm.
Does that happen a lot?
Not a ton. It does for older homes, because that's what's going to happen if in fact you have a 20-year-old roof. They're going to look at it and say, okay, we don't automatically include replacement cost on this roof. So we're going to really want to make sure that this is a good roof to be able to insure. However, if in fact the roof is less than 15 years old, A lot of times they won't, because even if in fact, unless you're driving by and you're seeing moss on the shingles and curling shingles and things like that, really something that you're looking at going, okay, there's a problem. In that particular case, obviously they'd come back and say, hey, the roof is in disrepair. But if it's, a roof that's within 15 years, you're buying a replacement cost policy. So that's what you'll get. And a lot of times, there's carriers that, if in fact you have a roof that's 2014, some carriers don't even come out and do an inspection anymore, just because there's so many inspections that are going to be done. They'd rather focus their efforts on the ones that they really want to inspect and kind of leave the ones that are newer properties alone.
What if you had a regular, like say, drone inspection completed by a third-party company? Could this said third-party company just kind of slide these inspections over to the insurance company just to make sure we're tracking and they're seeing that your roof is not aging improperly or it doesn't have hail damage? Or is there a way that we can work better together to keep the cost of this down than currently we're doing?
It's a good question. There's been plenty of times where we've come out and taken pictures of different houses and from different angles, and especially if in fact, I'll give you a perfect example. We were working with a carrier that's really based south in Florida, right? You know how a lot of homes in Minnesota have that steel, almost rain barrier where it comes down, then it diverts, rain diverter, I guess, and over the front doors and the sliding glass doors and such. Well, what was happening was, these carriers were thinking those were shingles that were curled up. And so they were,
oh my goodness,
That's terrible.
declining homes because of that. And I had to actually send them pictures of rain diverters that I found on Google saying, this is a rain diverter. You'll see where they're at. It's right over the front door. It's right over the sliding glass doors. So we've actually sent pictures like that to try to, make our case.
And Tim, real quick, I think we call that kick out flashing. I think that's what you're referring to.
Yeah, exactly. But, it's just, whatever it is that kind of diverts that water, away from the front door.
Definitely not
Wow.
shingles.
Exactly. But, but to answer your question, Bill, you can send them all the information that you want, but if they want to go out and do an inspection, they'll go out and do an inspection.
Yeah, it just seems like a game we're playing. And I guess I'm wondering, when did this game really ramp up?
If you're asking me, my opinion is the storms in 1999 is kind of when everything kind of started. It's odd because that's when I started in insurance, but I was down in Florida at the time. But, there were storms in 98, 2000, 2001, and they were all like what they call cat storms, which is, really big hail, all that stuff. My wife actually worked for a roofing and siding company. And that's when, all of these roofing and siding companies came in and started, negotiating with the insurance carriers for what the amounts were going to be that they were going to pay. And they started, working and dealing with the adjusters directly. At first, what would happen is you as a homeowner, you'd actually, if in fact you had a claim, you'd actually, call the insurance company first and then find a contract. What was happening is all these contractors were going out saying, wait a second, I see it. Why don't I meet with your adjuster and we'll go ahead and see if we can't come to an agreement. And that was happening all over. It's a tick and a tack. 1 second the roofers are coming up and there's plenty of high quality roofers, but there's a lot of storm chasers out there as well, right? But they would come up with something and the insurance would come up with something to refute it. And then they'd want to do something different and the insurance would come back and do something. And then mortgage companies decided that they needed to make sure that their risk was insured at replacement cost. So they were requiring that, which the roofers knew. And so they knew that, the majority of the roofs out there were replacement costs. So, what better way to get a full roof than to have the insurance companies pay for it?
I have so many questions. I think we could go on for literally 3 hours if we want.
I know. We're going to have you back on again, Tim, because we're running out of time on this one. But I do got to ask you real quick for people out there, if they are in that situation where their insurance company comes out to their house, sends them a letter and says, hey, we visited your house. And guess what? You either need to replace your roof or we're dropping your sorry butt. What advice would you have for them? Would it be smart to shop around for a different insurance carrier at that point?
At that point in time, it might be your only option. Or you could just go ahead and have it as an actual cash value policy, which again, I'm of that same mindset as, I listened to your Facebook post this morning, Ruben, about, it may just be a case where, hey, you're right. It's a 15-year-old roof. I don't get replacement cost. That's just the way that I'm going to go ahead and insure my home now. Because keep in mind, if in fact you have an actual cash value home versus replacement cost, your premium every year is lower too, because it's less expensive to insure your home if you're depreciating the roof than if in fact you didn't. So, there might be some people that just say, you know what, that's okay. It's a 15-year-old roof. My premium is going to go down by $250 a year. I'm okay with that. But on the flip side, if in fact you want to continue with replacement cost, like I said, there are carriers out there that will do that. But just keep in mind, insurance is there to make you whole. Insurance is there to repair, the damage done by these storms. It's not necessarily there to, make you better. And that's what replacement cost on a roof is doing, is, you're taking a roof that's 20 years old and making it brand new. And that's not what insurance is there to do. And that's where your higher premiums are coming.
Sure. Makes perfect sense.
Tim, this is good stuff. Before we wrap up, though, can you tell everybody how to get a hold of you if they have more questions or if they want a quote? Or...
Yeah, you bet. So our website is themolgrengroup.com, and Molgren is spelled Molgren. So themolgrengroup.com. You can reach us on our phone number is 952-657-7016. My email is my first name, last name, Tim Molgren at IPNagent.com. And IPN stands for Insurance Producers Network. That's kind of like our parent company, but Tim Molgren at IPNagent.com.
Very good. Tim, how many, in terms of percentages in the insurance world, how many independent brokers are there compared to a shop that only sells, say, State Farm or American Family?
Captive agents. That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. My guess is it's probably pretty close to half and half, just because there's more people that work for State Farm and Farmers, American Family, Liberty Mutual, but there's less of them. Right. And so on the independent side, there's more carriers to work with, but, you're not working independently for each one. So I would say you're probably pretty much 50-50 down the road. But I mean, State Farm is one of the largest insurance carriers out there for both auto and home. So on the captive side, they do hold a substantial part of the market. But the independent side, there's just a lot more options.
Sounds great. Thanks, Tim. This is good. And we're going to have you back to talk more. I can attest to State Farm. I'm in the middle of a claim with them now, and they've been really, really pleasant to work with. I mean, it's been a good experience, not something I'd complain about. So
I tell people all the time, there's plenty of places out there. If you Google State Farm sucks, you're going to get just as many as you Google Travelers sucks and any place else. A lot of times it just depends on the adjuster you're working with to make the experience, not necessarily the carrier.
Awesome. Well, I think we got to wrap this one up, but Ruben, just get Tim scheduled again.
It'll be fun.
Thanks, everybody. You've been listening to Structure Talk, a Structure Tech presentation. My name is Bill Ulrich, alongside Tessa Murray and Ruben Saltzman. Thank you for listening, and we will catch you next time.
For more information on how we can provide you with the right information about your home before you buy or sell, contact us at structuretech.com.